Okay. Hi, Dustin.
Hey, Hooper.
Starting a little late tonight.
It's all good.
That's cool. You know, also I didn't do it and split our audio channels. There we go.
Hey, there you go.
That's better. All right, let's try again.
All right, let's do it.
Hi, Dustin.
Hey, Hooper.
All right, the audio channels are split. We're good to go now.
Sweet.
Oh boy. All right. Welcome everybody. It's the HooperCast, and this is us. Just starting late, having problems with the mixer, and doing our thing.
Just is what it is.
It is what it is. What it is also is on youtube.com/HooperCast and
yes,
iTunes, Stitcher, Spotify, if you like to listen, or you can do both. So, yeah. Okay. So let's cut right to the chase, Dustin. We're, it's week, whatever of I guess I don't want to call it quarantine, but people are, what are the people calling it?
It is kind of quarantine.
Not isolation, but they're calling it like lockdown. That's what it is.
Lockdown. Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, so we got stay-at-home orders all over the place. People looking for stuff to watch, and studios are responding by starting to drop theatrical stuff onto streaming services a lot earlier than they normally would have.
Yep.
And we talked last week about how, or a couple weeks ago, we talked about how Onward was going to be on Disney Plus.
Yeah.
And it is, and we watched it, and we have some thoughts.
Yeah.
So let's talk about Onward.
In times of old, the world was full of wonder and magic. But times change.
I'm a mighty warrior!
Morning, Mom.
Hey, birthday boy.
By the laws of yore, I must dub thee a man today. Kneel before me.
That's okay.
I have a gift from your dad. He just said to give you this when you were both over 16.
No way! It's a wizard staff. Dad was a wizard.
What? Your dad was an accountant.
This spell brings him back. For one whole day, Dad will be back.
What? Back to life? That's not possible.
It is with this.
I'm gonna meet Dad.
Whoa, feet!
It's getting harder to hold!
He's just legs. I definitely remember Dad having a top part.
Oh, what did I do?
So Onward, released in 2020, was directed by Dan Scanlon. Also written an original story by Dan Scanlon. You know him; he's a Pixar alum. And it stars Tom Holland, Chris Pratt, Julia Louis-Dreyfus, Octavia Spencer, and a whole host of other people who you know and have heard of. Onward is. You want me to go ahead and give the quick synopsis here?
Yeah, go ahead.
Sure. So Onward is the story of two brothers, Ian and Barley. They are elves, and their father passed away when they were both quite young. Barley has a few memories of him, but Ian, the younger brother, has no memories of him. He died really before Ian was born, or right thereafter.
Very early on.
Very early on.
Yeah.
Right. So Ian, our protagonist, played by Tom Holland, on his 16th birthday, is given a magical staff. Like a wizard's staff by his mother that is from his father. And basically, it also contains a way to resurrect his father for one day only, so that his father can see the kind of boys that they have become, and so the men they've become. So that's the general thrust of the story. However, as inciting incidents go, the spell does not work quite as intended, and they're left with just their father's legs. And so basically just waist down. And so they take these legs on a magical journey to find a way to resurrect him completely. But they only have 24 hours to do that. And so it's going to be a huge journey through this fantastic world that Pixar's created here. A little bit similar to, like, if you remember the movie Bright by David Ayer.
Yes.
It's a little bit like that, right? It's this Lord of the Rings-esque mythical world where wizards and elves and dwarves and all of that, cyclopses and minotaurs and all of that all live in peace. However, it's sort of ramped up to modern day, and they kind of forgot all the magic that used to be in the world, and they're, just doing normal things like we do, like scrolling through Facebook and driving to work every day. And so that's sort of the world. But these two boys are going to traverse this crazy world and try to reclaim a little bit of that old magic.
Yeah.
So
they're on a mythical quest.
They are. A mythical quest in a modern world.
Yes, indeed. There we go. That's the elevator pitch.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah. What was your star rating for this? Do you want to go ahead and give that?
Sure. You know what? I think I'm going to go I guess I'll go 4 on our new 6-star rating system. It's good. It's not great, but it's better than just okay. So 4.
Yeah, I have the same thoughts. I gave it 3.5.
Okay.
I think I wrote. Okay, here's I'll paraphrase what's on Letterboxd. You can follow me on that. Where's that thing? There's that thing. There it is. Okay, so Onward. I said it's really imaginative, and I think that the premise is cool. Post-magic world where mythology still remains part of culture. I think that the emotional beats of the film are its best attribute. Everything having to do with them longing to even have a minute of time with their dead father is really endearing, and you really feel their longing for that time with this person that they barely knew. And I love a good hero's journey. And those are all the reasons on paper that I would like this movie. I think what bothers me about this film was that it didn't feel to me like a Pixar movie. It felt like it wasn't restrained in a lot of the ways that Pixar normally is, or subtle in the way that Pixar normally is. It felt like a really good idea that was executed by a lesser studio like Universal or DreamWorks. But there's good stuff here. The third act is great. I think that kids, though, especially, are going to be bored by especially the first act, which spends a lot of time building the world and introducing the characters and selling you on the relationships. So as far as it goes as a kid's movie, you might get some kids kind of tuning out at the beginning, but when they start getting in vans and they start driving and there's more stuff happening, the kids will kind of rein in and pay attention more. So I thought that it was structurally pretty solid and straightforward. Despite that, I'm a little surprised. I just didn't connect with the story through most of the film for whatever reason. It's perfectly good film, and I would watch it again. But I don't think it deserves to be counted among Pixar's best films, which we'll talk about in a minute. So yeah, on a 6-star system, I agreed. I was like, it's better than okay. I just wouldn't call it great. I'd call it solid. And so I gave it 3.5. Yeah, a safe 3.5 choice, I think. Especially, I wrote that the next morning, so I had a little bit of time to let it percolate. I haven't heard anyone's thoughts on this movie, besides outside of my house. So yeah,
that's one of the perks of lockdown.
I know, yeah.
You don't have to talk about stuff and hear people's.
Well, it's all over, like film news. Like parents are in their feelings about Onward, and it's like.
Sure.
Well, I mean, like, as a parent, like, that's one of the things that maybe was a personal connection for me for the movie, was just like, I kept imagining, like, I kept thinking about the dad. I was like, this guy doesn't have any idea what's going on. I'm sure he assumes that they've done the spell because he's wondering what the hell's happening.
Yeah.
But he can't hear them. He can't speak to them. He can just tell by, a couple of, set up and pay off character things that these are his sons. And he can probably assume they're trying to get to the place to finish the spell. But he is very much unaware of what's happening. And I kept thinking, like, what if I were him? Like, I'd be thinking, like, oh, wow, they only have a day, and as the movie progresses and then we get to the end of the film, I kept thinking, like, I wonder what that guy's thinking. Like, that's what I want to see, like, a short film that's his top half.
It's just his top half.
Afterlife, just assuming what's happening.
Yeah. That'd be great.
Yeah, I feel like Pixar should do a short where it's, I don't know.
The top half.
Onward. To call it Inward.
Oh. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I basically agree with everything that you said. I didn't really connect very well. And I don't think it's any fault of the film necessarily.
We should point out that Pixar has so many great films.
Yeah.
It's not really a failure of this film to be effective. It's
Sure.
just its lack of exceptionalism
Yeah,
among
exactly.
this studio's other films.
Exactly. I mean, look, we're going to talk about in a few minutes
Yeah.
some of their better films, and we'll give a few reasons why we think they are as great as they are.
Yep.
And this just doesn't reach those heights, and so there's something about it. You know, I agree with you. I think it doesn't quite feel like a Pixar movie because it almost feels like a studio trying to ape or mimic the Pixar formula.
Yeah.
Right. Like, okay, now we do, funny scene. Now we do heartfelt scene. Now we do goofy character. Now we do whatever. And it just kind of like felt like it was going through the motions of a Pixar movie, but it never really managed to truly connect. And I mean, I felt some things, right? Like I knew what they were trying to get me to feel. And I felt some of those things, but I didn't feel it naturally. I felt it because the film was telling me to feel it.
Yeah.
And I think that's the difference, right? Like, again, we'll talk about it later, but there are some Pixar films where the emotion in the audience just comes out. The film doesn't have to coax it out. It's just there. And in here, I do think there was a little bit of coaxing involved. I think the performances were great. Chris Pratt, Tom Holland, they did a great job. But I think that, especially for Ian, who's our protagonist, I thought he was a little bland through most of it, especially when compared to Barley, who, even though he may be a little one note, although he does pick up another added dimension later in the film, Ian just seemed bland to me. And I think that could be partially that they tried to do two things with Ian. The first was that they wanted us to connect with this emotional, like, longing he had to spend time with his dad. And they also wanted us to weirdly feel for him that he couldn't connect with his classmates. And I felt like that was disconnected from the story as a whole.
I was confused later on when I was like, his isolation at school is sort of meaningless.
Yeah, it doesn't really mean
it's about your lack of a male presence, a male authority figure in your life. It has nothing to do with whether you have friends or not. In fact, it would serve the story more that you were well liked by your close circle of friends,
but you still
felt like you were missing something.
Exactly. And I think very easily this film could have taken place over like summer break, and you cut out all the school stuff and it would have been fine. It wouldn't have altered the story much at all. And so, I think there's a few parts like that where I felt like, oh, that could go, like we could cut that. That doesn't really pay off.
That's part of what makes the first act drag.
It does.
It's unnecessary setup.
Yeah, and then there's a few superfluous characters too. I mean, the Manticore is fine, and she has some sort of an arc. The mother going on the journey with the Manticore, that's fine too. But the
Manticore has an immediate arc.
yeah, an arc and then an arc back, and then it's weird. And so I feel like some of the other characters though I feel like could probably go. I mean, you have the other cop who is dating the mom, and he's fine.
Centaur.
But then you have like other cops, and you have anyway, there are other characters. Anyway, the characters can go, right. Like they don't really serve a purpose, and you can write around them kind of. And then for me, the main thing that kind of confused me through it, and you touched on it, is you have the dad's lower half. I never was clear, like, was there a top half in the afterlife doing things like going places, or was the top half just non-existent and you just have the bottom half? But then, like, part of me is almost like, why even have that at all? Like, if it were me writing this, I would have I would have him show up, right? Like in that opening scene, the Phoenix Stone or whatever is bringing him back, and he pops in and then disappears completely. Yeah. And then it's the two brothers on the journey without him, without the legs, because the legs don't do anything.
Because then you can't check that box of the funny nonverbal sidekick character thing.
Yeah, but
this is the rooster from Moana.
Again, it's going through the motions of what a Disney Pixar movie is.
Yeah,
but
that's why it feels like it's a different studio. It feels like something Pixar would have gone, This is what people are going to expect, and we shouldn't do that.
Right. And I just felt like the legs, there were more questions than there were like anything, like, because at one point he starts dancing and I'm like,
that's the only thing I can think of that where I would miss that gag, you know?
Yeah.
In that moment.
Yeah. Yes.
But mostly I'm sort of thinking,
And it is a good gag. It is a good moment. But I think that the legs become like a storytelling, or they could do two things. They could become a storytelling crutch where, the legs just exist to get the boys in trouble. Right. Or it just becomes like, something the boys have to worry about. Like, oh no, they're going to find out it's just legs. And I just think that that's kind of a cheap way of getting, like, of there being stakes. Right. So anyway, I don't know. I think I would have just done away with the legs, like, completely. I would have I think it would have been more emotional to have the dad pop in and see the boys and the boys see him. And before he can say a word, he's gone again. Right. And then it's like, oh, there's a chance. Like, all we have to do is do it right and we can have him back. And, but then I guess the question is like, well, how do you pay off this thing at the end where it's like, okay, you've got 24 hours. And so he's going to get, like, sorry, spoilers, my bad. Shoot, I just trounced all over it. Anyway, yeah, so things happen in the film. I've never done that before. That's weird. Anyway, the point is, like, you have to have a moment to pay that off, right? That you have 24 hours to do a thing, but if he pops in and vanishes, do the 24 hours still apply, or like, is it 24 hours from the moment where it works, or how does that work? And so I think it'd just be another thing to explain. But anyway, the point is, I think the legs could go. Sorry, I spoiled it, guys. Like,
here's what I think. I think that the problem with the legs is that you have something that can't emote.
Yes.
And there's clearly, at least by evidence of the film, there's no good, like, silent film kind of like fun things you can do with it that make you feel for this pair of legs. And instead of feeling for them, you sort of feel like it's just like this cheap gag, and it's not their father. It's not the MacGuffin. It's not the object of desire in the screenplay. And, frankly, I kept thinking things like, does he have to pee?
Right.
I mean, he I don't know how low your bladder is. Is your bladder below your belt line? I mean, does he have a bladder?
That's a good question.
So he has genitals, but he doesn't have a bladder. So does he have to pee?
Mm-hmm.
Or if he had to, could he pee?
But he hasn't had anything to drink, and theoretically...
That's true. If he has a bladder, it's empty.
Yeah, it would be empty. And he wouldn't have to poop because he has no stomach that has digested food, and,
Yeah.
But then the other question is there blood flow to these legs? If so, what is that being pumped by?
Yeah. It sounds silly, like we're joking around, but it really does, like, it really is no more than like, listen, it's a movie for kids. It's funny to have a pair of legs flopping around in the back of a van, and that's fun. Yeah. But to me, it really is just like, no, but that has to make some kind of sense. And as an adult who's supposed to appreciate these movies, and as an adult who has been satisfied by other Pixar films that took the time to explain things like this, or at least make them make sense, it felt like a really big gap in story logic. Like, okay, I get that this is a gag, but this should make a little bit of sense so that I can accept it as the adult watching. And
it feels like something that Pixar would have thought of.
It would have thought of, but that's why I say other studios, because other studios just go, it's funny, kids will like it. And they forget that there are adults watching this movie who want to have a good time as well. And they tune out when just silly shit's going on that we can't explain. So, yeah, that's all. I mean, it's on Disney Plus right now. I think, it is worth checking out. Totally. Your kids are going to want to see it. So, I just think that, when it comes to ranking, which we will do after this break coming up, it sits not near the top for me.
Yeah, no, I would agree.
Yeah.
But I think that it is better than quite a few Pixar movies. So it is worth seeing.
It is right in the middle, I believe.
Yeah.
Yeah. Actually, for me, I'll go ahead and say this right before the break. It is mathematically in the middle of my list.
Is it really? It's not there for me, but I got you.
All right. Well, let's do this. Let's go to break. We'll come back. We'll talk about our all of the Pixar films ranked for us. We've never done this before. So spoiler coming up. We're going to spoil all the Pixar movies probably somehow in the course of this. So we'll be right back on the HooperCast Movie Hour.
I like that.
Thank you. Every time I mention like things like this pair of legs maybe having a penis, I see you put your hand in your head, like your head in your hand, like like
we're discussing this now.
Hoping we were past this behavior and then being always disappointed.
It's fine.
It's weird because I've been watching past videos lately, and you've been doing that a lot this last run of films. You did it a lot during The Shape of Water, where I kept talking about the fish man. I was on like a 6-minute jag about fish man sex, and you were so uncomfortable.
Oh, that's great. That sounds about right.
Oh, that's a good one though. That's a good episode, The Shape of Water, because I think the other one, I think it was Ready Player One and Shape of Water. No, it was Wrinkle in Time, I think.
Ooh.
So we talked about that, and then we did Shape of Water.
That.
Yeah, that was. I later saw the movie or sat in the room while it was on, and I was like, ugh.
Oof. Yeah, that's a film.
That movie's kind of a mess. Hey, welcome back, everybody. All right, so we're gonna do our Pixar rankings here. We got 22 films to go through, and not a lot of time. So I will say that we're gonna probably spoil the movies. So if you're listening, you don't want to be spoiled for whatever reason. I guess stop listening. But this is a good list. I'll say preemptively, and I say that because we did an episode called the Great Disney Pixar Bracket. And we did some March Madness bracket that someone had put together of Disney films on one side, Pixar films on the other, and seeded them, and then they faced off and whatever. And it's a super long, but probably one of our best episodes we've ever done.
It's a good episode.
Yeah, it was a good long discussion. Anyways, so there's a little taste of our opinions in there, but there's a few films that have been released since that, and my opinions are all over the place. They change. So we're going to start at the bottom of our list, and we'll just go to the top and see if we agree.
Okay.
So, Dustin, my number 22 on the list is Cars 2. How about you?
That is also mine.
Okay.
I full disclosure, I cannot get through this movie. I tried 3 times. I cannot do it.
Dustin had not seen the film, and he had to this list, and he would keep texting me.
I can't do it.
It's such a bad movie. And again, we're starting at the bottom here, so we're allowed to say the very worst. My list is sectioned into bad, good, great, exceptional, and I even grouped it by star ratings. I'm going to retroactively grade all these films as we go. So Cars 2 is a 1 star, and it's lucky to get that because this is one of the only movies that Pixar's made where I think this is direct to DVD swill. You know, it's I mean, you're watching, you know this. I mean, like the plot is not about Lightning McQueen really at all. It's it's them saying Mater's popular. Let's make a movie where Mater is the subject, and which would have been.
It's a fine short film.
Acceptable to an extent, but it was 2 wrongs. It was, we're going to make Mater the main character.
Yeah.
First mistake. Yeah. Second of all, we're going to have him be a spy.
Yes.
This is I know it's called Cars, so it could be about cars doing anything, but you kind of established that Cars is about Lightning McQueen.
Or at least that it has things that cars are known for, like driving fast. Not karate.
Karate.
That makes no sense to me.
Karate.
Karate.
Yes.
That makes no
It makes
sense.
me so sad that Emily Mortimer and Michael Caine are in this. It makes me so upset, and it makes me fearful of what Michael Caine will do for a paycheck.
Can we just note for a second that Michael Caine is in a film with Larry the Cable Guy?
And I guarantee you part of what drew them to the I guarantee they didn't read the script, and I guarantee you that they took it because they saw Paul Newman's name on the first movie and they're like, well, Paul Newman was in this. I mean, that's...
Or they just saw Pixar and they said, oh, I can trust that.
I trust this brand.
Yeah. Because up to that point, you could.
God. Cars 2 is a shit pile. I don't say that lightly.
Here's the thing, like I watched it and so first of all, it is nonstop gibberish. It never shuts up. It is just Larry the Cable Guy doing his shtick for like doesn't even take breaths in between these lines. It's just over and over and over.
Yeah.
And with the occasional like, oh wow, in the middle of it. And that's it. That's all it is. And the moment that I like checked out, although I was already checked out by this point, but the moment that I officially was like,
turn the television off,
that I was like, I don't think I can watch this.
I know.
There's a moment where Lightning McQueen like goes up to like meet some dude, is like, we're gonna do a race, and here's Lightning McQueen, and McQueen comes up and Mater comes up and pees on the floor. And he's like, oh, I've never leaked before. And he like drives away. And I'm like, you just had a car pee on the floor. I can't do this. And then he runs off to the bathroom. And I'm like, why do cars need a bathroom? None of this makes any logical sense. We just talked about it before the break, a pair of legs that you would think a smart studio like Pixar would think through, like, how does this work? Why?
Yeah.
Why did nobody say cars don't pee?
You know, it's one of those things where this is one of those things where you sort of go, okay, in this world, because it's been talked about over and over again, like how the cars do any sort of maintenance that needs fine motor skills.
Right.
No fucking pun intended.
Some pun.
Please, no, really no. Like fix computers or like do surgery or things like that. It's just, okay, fine. There's foot pedals that start this film projector that Lightning McQueen uses, but who built the foot pedal? Who wired it up? Someone had to do. It's really disturbing to think about. If it were humans, where are they? And if it's not, then it's one of those things where it's just, look, cars are people and they can do stuff and just don't worry about it. It's like, okay, fine. Even accepting that premise, which I accept for the other two Cars films.
Sure.
These cars are outfitted with guns. Who loads the magazine? Who makes bullets? Who pours gunpowder into a little cartridge?
But here's a better question. With the guns, I was going to bring up the guns too. Why are they shooting guns? If a car gets shot with a gun, it just makes a bullet hole. It doesn't stop anything.
It doesn't have a heart.
Well, but that's the question. If you opened up a car door for cars, would like internal organs fall out?
Yeah.
Like, are these cars actually running on blood and organs? Like they're humans just in car shape?
It's I love 2/3 of the Cars movies, but the world building and the premise is really thin if you ask too many questions.
It falls apart in Cars 2.
Yeah.
It makes no sense.
And I think that's why they walk it back for Cars 3 and they refocus the plot on lightning and racing.
Oh, they totally walk it back.
Because they sort of realized, like, we opened up too many questions about how the world works, and the movie just came off as kind of offensive, in a way.
Yeah, totally.
Cars 2 sucks.
It's awful. It has a 39% on Rotten Tomatoes. That's
generous.
That is the only Pixar movie that is rotten.
Really?
Yes.
Because I would think number 21 on my list, Toy Story 4, would have gotten a rotten rating. Is that
so? That is also number 21 on my list.
Wow.
However, on Rotten Tomatoes, it is the 7th highest rated Pixar movie of all time.
Is it in the 90s?
It is 97.
Jesus.
97% of critics gave that film a favorable review. Now, again, we've talked about Rotten Tomatoes. That does not mean that the film that these critics all said it was an A+.
It means a bunch of critics liked it.
A bunch of critics liked it, whatever that means. I did not like it. And the only reason it's at 21 rather than 22, even though this film pisses me off, is because Cars 2 somehow pisses me off more, and I can't get through it.
Yeah.
At least with Toy Story 4, I got through it.
There's some things to like in Toy Story 4, but Cars 2 is just it really is. And I'm sorry that I keep saying it in such a crass, uncreative way. It's a shit pile of a film. It is stupid. It shouldn't have been released theatrically. It's just a bad movie. It's just a bad movie. Yep. But I would also give Toy Story 4 a 1 star, and I don't know why I gave it last year when we reviewed it, but I'm changing my review. It's a 1 star because at the end of the day, it does piss me off. And it pisses me off because it takes a trilogy that I otherwise love, and all the reasons, like we love the trilogy, it should have ended, and then they kept it going. So it's like, okay, fine, well, what's the reason they kept it going? And the reason is stupid. And the reason is we're going to change the characters' philosophies, we're going to reverse course on a bunch of things that we've established. And while there's a few good things in here that are kind of fun, there's more missed opportunities than there are completed opportunities. Like all the Benson stuff is great, but they don't do anything with it. And Duke Kaboom I thought was stupid. I know you guys liked it more than me, but I
didn't like Duke Kaboom.
Okay, I hate Duke Kaboom. And everything, what they do to Buzz Lightyear in this movie, the inclusion of Key and Peele, I thought was again lesser studio. The only reason this felt like a Pixar film to me is because these are legacy characters with legacy cast voices, and there was some care in the better scenes to the kind of subject matter that Pixar is getting better at. Darker subject matter, more bleak subject matter, and making it palatable for kids. They did do that here, and they did execute it well to an extent. But so much of this movie is just a disappointment that it really went to the bottom of my list quick when I was really thinking about it.
Yeah, I don't remember what I gave it when we initially reviewed it, but it is now one of my least favorite films. And only because look, before I say that, there, like you said, there are some great things here, or there are some good things here. I mean, there's general, these filmmakers know what they're doing, right? Like as far as shot composition, the score, the performances, the animation, like the actual quality of the character animation, it's all great. It's all first class. The problem is in the writing. I think it's a betrayal of the characters that were set up, the philosophies that were set up. I think it completely misunderstands what made Toy Story work. I think it raises more questions than answers about the world building, similar to Cars 2. It kind of, to me, ruined the mystique. Now, it does not retroactively ruin the original films because they are so great, but this just completely misunderstands and mishandles everything within the IP. And while there are some good things, and I would certainly watch some scenes again, I don't know that I'll ever sit back down and watch this whole film, at least not voluntarily. And what happens at the end, we talked a little bit about this when we talked about Onward before the break. It feels like they're coaxing emotion out of you. It is just running rampant in this film. They are totally trying to make you feel things that you don't naturally feel. And the case in point here, again, we said spoilers, is at the end when Woody and Buzz say their goodbyes. I can't accept that is a logical character choice for Woody to make. And so I can't feel the emotion of it. But you are trying so hard to manipulate me into an emotion that I see straight through it, because it's not something that I even can agree to feel. And so it feels like blatant manipulation, blatant mishandling, misunderstanding is lowest common denominator. It's something that kids won't question because they don't understand the finer points of the philosophical difference between Toy Story 1, 2, and 3, and 4. Yeah, I mean, there's a lot I could say about this, but bottom line, I just disagree with every choice this film made.
Yeah, I totally agree. And yeah, it's it's so disappointing.
It is.
It's so disappointing. All right, the last thing on my list in the bad section that I would consider, I rated it bad. I know you don't agree. Is I have my 20th as Monsters University.
Okay.
I know that's probably much higher up your list.
It is.
And I don't like Monsters University because it fits the same thing with the whole criticisms of Onward and Cars 2 and Toy Story 4 of this feels like a lesser studio thing. It feels like I just the whole I mean, on paper I wasn't psyched about it when they announced it. And then I saw it and I just wasn't really it just didn't feel like it was executed to the standards of Pixar to me. Why is it highlighting all your get away Skype information? It's showing up all your information.
No.
Okay. Well, and there it goes. And I just wasn't, I don't know. I wasn't into it. It just, it's a prequel. I don't know. Yeah.
That's fair. Monsters University is sitting at an 80% on Rotten Tomatoes. That is towards the bottom of the list.
Where is it on your list?
On my list, it is 1, 2. Hold on. I lost count.
Oh, did you not number him?
No, I have it. So it's 8.
Wow.
It's 8 on my list. Yeah, I have it pretty high.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah, I love Monsters University. I guess I can go ahead and talk about it while we're here, rather than revisiting it later in the conversation.
Yeah.
For me, no, I would agree with you. I think it does feel different, but for me, I think the meat of it is there's a good story behind it. I generally find stories of college life, to be pretty interesting just by themselves, simply because there's a lot of growth that happens generally for characters in college. And so the Mike Wazowski character as a main protagonist, I think was a really great thing. It allowed us to see what he wanted. And then what's great is it actually sort of, to me, adds to the lore of Monsters, Inc. in that we see how desperately Mike Wazowski wants a thing, and then his direction changes, only to then have him be open in Monsters, Inc. to sort of redefining what all of this was, and then essentially living out what he always wanted to do. So when you pair them together, I do think it builds on Monsters, Inc. in a weird way, because it is a prequel. But I just really enjoy the through line of Mike Wazowski from this early spot where we see him as, we see him in like preschool and then in college, and then we see him, as an adult. And I just really love that through line. And I love the story of how these two friends became friends. It's kind of an unlikely pairing anyway. And I just really enjoyed it. I think bottom line, this isn't one of their deepest films, and it's certainly not one of the most emotionally affecting, but it is incredibly fun to watch. I have fun every time I watch it. And I just love the energy behind it. So yeah, I'm not going to disagree with you that I think maybe it is a lesser, it feels like a different studio, right? But I think I think it's a cool, it's just a different flavor for Pixar, because it's not one of those like super emotional movies. It's just a fun buddy comedy. Yeah. And I think that's a lot of fun and something new and different that they tried. And maybe you could argue that they tried some emotional beats in there and it didn't work. I think they did. I just don't think they were incredibly emotional. It was just like, oh, cute, or whatever. But it wasn't as deep as Monsters, Inc. maybe, but I thought it was more fun to watch. So it is actually higher than Monsters, Inc. on my list.
Yeah, I think that I just wasn't into that genre being tackled in that way, because I think for me, just the Pixar brand, especially like those characters, were sort of executed in a different light. Although Monsters, Inc. is lighter and less introspective than the other films, like you were saying.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I think it's just like in terms of genre and in terms of tone, it's something different that Pixar. It's something different than Pixar's ever done, and so
Yeah.
for me, I really enjoyed it.
All right, now we're into the phase of my list where we're in 2-star territory.
Okay.
And I'm gonna go ahead and just give you these next three and to see if they're
Okay.
anywhere close to yours. Because
Yep.
John said there's a couple not in this area. I showed John my list and he was surprised a couple of mine were as low as they were.
Uh-huh.
So I have A Bug's Life at 19,
Okay.
The Good Dinosaur at 18, and Ratatouille at 17.
Okay. Interesting. Yeah, I have Ratatouille higher. I have The Good Dinosaur at 20, and I have A Bug's Life at
Oh, that's
18.
Okay, yeah,
In between them, I have Brave.
right. Okay.
So yeah, my next three would be Good Dinosaur, Brave, Bug's Life.
Brave is my number 16. That would have been the next thing I mentioned. So
Okay.
yeah, we're in all these areas. We're sort of entering like areas where I could really. It's like the Olympics. Like they're within milliseconds of each other, placing and
Sure.
hitting the podium, and so it's just like it just depends on what you like. Who was best that day? Who was in best form?
Right.
When I saw it, that movie.
Agreed. I think The Good Dinosaur. It's not fine. It's weak.
Yeah.
It's ultimately kind of forgettable.
Yeah.
Brave, I think, is also forgettable. I think that, between the two of them, to me, those are the two movies that I care the least about.
Yeah.
Right. Like Cars 2 and Toy Story 4 are awful, but I'm at least passionate about how awful they are.
Yeah.
Like The Good Dinosaur and Brave to me are so forgettable. I most of the time I forget they exist. And then when you remind me, I'm like, oh yeah, what were they about? I kind of remember.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, they just kind of fall in that weird territory for me.
The Good Dinosaur is my son loves it, of course, and
Sure.
the like we said at the time, the animation is very gorgeous except for the character design, but it's just really simple and it's devoid of a lot of the things that the other Pixar movies are rich in, and so
Yeah.
it comes down here just simply for being kind of just sort of nondescript as a movie, and again not really living up to the brand standards in my opinion.
Yeah,
At
sure.
least.
Yeah, that makes sense.
A Bug's Life. I mean, I love that as a kid, but I mean they've done so much better since. That was their second movie, and
Yeah.
it's inventive and everything, but it hasn't aged well. The animation's not that great
Yep.
today, and it's sort of like I think someone compared it to structurally like the Seven Samurai, the Magnificent Seven.
Yeah.
Because that's
Yeah.
essentially what Flick is doing. He's going out and inadvertently hires a round
Putting a team together.
puts a team together to come liberate
Yeah.
his town from the
Sure.
from the cowboy menace.
Yeah. Yeah.
Hopper.
Yeah. It's not untrue for me. Again, it's kind of forgettable. Like, it's the second film that Pixar made. For me, I don't think I've revisited this in a long time.
Yeah.
And I think there's a reason for that. I think it's just ultimately kind of boring.
Yeah, I wouldn't say it's boring. It's again, it's more down there for what it doesn't do than what it does do.
Sure.
So, and it really gets
Yeah.
no points for being an early film,
Right.
I wouldn't do that.
And
Ratatouille.
while we're here, sorry,
that's
The
fine.
Good Dinosaurs 76% on Rotten Tomatoes.
Okay.
Brave is 78% on Rotten Tomatoes. A Bug's Life is at 92.
Huh. I guess
Yeah.
Bug's Life has more emotional highs and lows. It's got more
Sure.
of an arc for Flick, I guess.
Sure,
That's always
that makes
fun, yeah. Let's see. I have Brave at 16, so I have Brave in 3-star territory, and I think I think there's just maybe a little more in the story there for me than
Sure.
again, this is a pack of films that we have to rank, so it's like, well,
Yeah.
what gets the higher slot and why?
Yeah. Yeah.
Ratatouille's down at 2 stars for me. And John was really surprised by that. And I
I'm surprised by that.
I just said because it's just personal preference. I don't really have a desire to watch Ratatouille again. It doesn't have a lot of rewatch value for me. It's not that it's not a wonderfully, I say cultural, like it's one of those films, like I know how much research went into Ratatouille. I know how much research Pixar does on their films and how much they really try to nail an atmosphere when they make movies. and how authentically French they wanted to make it, and authentically culinary. I just, at the end of the day, wasn't really into the premise, into Linguini's whole growth and his his familial connection to the chef, and it just comes down to, like, it was a solid film, and it certainly deserves praise. But other people have more of a personal love for it than I do. I just don't. I don't have that for that movie.
Yeah, no, I have it at
Seen
number.
Ratatouille all the way through, like, twice.
Okay,
Yeah.
so I have it at number 9 on my list.
Dang.
I really enjoy it. I do find myself rewatching it quite often. I love the meta narrative that exists in this film. That it's basically explaining the story of Disney. And so you have Brad Garrett's character, Gusteau, who is Walt Disney, and he's dead.
Yeah.
And what's happening to his company, in his absence, is they're turning him into a brand. They're turning him into this, weird, hodgepodge of ideas that he never actually had.
Yeah.
And then you have, like, this new hotshot chef coming in, and all this stuff, right? It is even down to, like, the critics who were kind of down on Disney for a while, and then kind of get turned around once Pixar, the new guy, comes in and saves it. And it's really meta, and
That's interesting. Damn it.
And I really love that about it. It's a story about Disney that flew under Disney's radar, because they wouldn't have allowed that movie to be made if it had been about Disney.
Right.
And so I really enjoy that. And maybe you could say that was unintentional. It's coincidental. I think it's too on the nose to be coincidence. The fact that it's about a rat and not a mouse, I think it's just too on the nose. I think it's there. And so for me, I really enjoy the rewatch value of it. But again, I would also say this is one of their less emotional films. There are a few emotional beats here and there.
That's clearly what gets me more than anything.
Right. But by the end, but again, I like the ideas that it presents so much that it negates any absence of emotion. But I will say I do still connect with the characters, and I do still enjoy watching them. And I think it's an interesting, kind of dual protagonist structure, where you have two protagonists that alone can't accomplish the goals that they have, but together can accomplish the same goal, but it's actually different goals.
Yeah.
And it's a really cool film structurally. So just from a structure, like, storytelling perspective, I really dig it.
All right. And the rest of my 3-star section, I've got WALL-E at number 15.
Oh, wow.
And
Okay.
I've got Monsters, Inc. at number 14.
Okay.
Where are you at around those sections?
So I have at number, I'm sorry, what numbers were you on again?
I was on 15 and 14, but I also
15 and 14.
So yeah.
Okay. So let me catch up
16.
here. I'm gonna give you my 17, 16, 15, and I'll stop there.
Okay.
So 17, I have Finding Dory.
Okay.
I feel like Finding Dory is another cash grab kind of a movie. It reminds me of Cars 2. It's a lot more watchable, but it's side character who's kind of annoying goes on an adventure by themselves, and it's just kind of it's just unnecessary, and it's very Cars 2-ish. And so for me, it's a lot better than Cars 2. It's obviously watchable, but it's just down there for me.
Right.
And then above that, I have Cars, the first Cars.
Okay.
The first Cars to me is good, but not great.
Yeah.
It serves its purpose and does what it's supposed to do. However, I don't find myself rewatching it, and it's just kind of there. And it's the same with Finding Dory. I don't rewatch that. So yeah, they're both, like, they're not forgettable, but they just aren't rewatchable. And then number 15, I have Onward.
Okay.
Again, I think it'll fall into that similar territory where, although we're actually pushing up to the rewatchable section, but
Right.
I think like Finding Dory and Cars aren't very rewatchable. Onward, I think, would be the lowest rewatchable film for me.
All right, so we're definitely in the middle of my broad middle section where
Mhm.
where I would consider the good films are.
Yeah, I would agree.
Right.
I'm at the good. Yeah.
Yeah, the grade is above this for me. And then
Mm.
so Wall-E I really am into in a lot of ways. But in other ways I'm just not into it.
Sure.
It's I don't really have anything against Wall-E except that it's just it and Monsters Inc. to me are both like these are enjoyable to sit down and watch, and I enjoy sitting down and watching them for different reasons. But when you look at this entire list, it's like what would I rather watch today? It's neither of those movies.
Sure.
Again, it's just I mean, there's a lot more like emotional stuff in Wall-E and a lot more subtlety with how they executed it. But you know, as you'll see as the list goes on, I tend to be into a lot more like not plot heavy, but adventure based. And I'm saying all these things that Wall-E is, but
Sure.
I
Like more of a quest.
more of a I guess so.
Maybe. Yeah.
Wall-E is a relatively small story character wise. It's
It
you
is.
know it's got a really small set of characters, but it's on
Mm-hmm.
a pretty grand scale, and it wants to say something about the environment, and that's all great as well. It just didn't capture my heart or imagination. And Monsters
Sure.
Inc. is again really solid. But you know these are my mid grades. You know these,
Yeah.
and then Brave is at 16 still, and for the
Mhm.
reasons we talked about already.
Mhm.
Since we talked about a couple of these movies, I'll go ahead and do my 13, 12, 11, and
Sure.
these are my 3.5 stars. So we've got 13. We have Up. 12 is Finding Dory. 11 is Onward. So we already
Okay.
talked about Onward. All the reasons that it's. I mean, again, 22 films. Mathematically, Onward is in the middle.
Yep.
Finding Dory, I thought was You're right. It's structurally and financially the same reason for being as Cars 2 is, but it's a lot less of a horrible train wreck and a lot more of, I wouldn't say like a solid or you know exciting character thing for Dory, because it's like I don't really need to explore her that much. Like
Sure.
throughout the movie, I'm thinking I don't feel the need to go through any of this.
Mhm.
I think I just enjoy the world, and so that's what makes it rewatchable for me. Is I just think that these characters that they made in this world and doing an underwater movie is so interesting that
Mm.
that feeling carries over into this film as well. If they made a third
Sure.
movie, I think I'd be like, okay, stop, like,
Right.
finding Crush or whatever whatever it's gonna be.
Yep. Probably.
Finding Nigel, the Jeffrey Rush,
The Pelican
like
or whatever.
the Pelican.
Yeah.
Anyway, yeah, that's I guess those are my reasons for those guys. What's around that area for you?
So my 14 is Cars 3.
Okay.
This is the highest of the Cars movies for me.
Yeah, me too.
And it's the freshest on my mind. I watched it the most recently.
Right.
But I will say, like, I was very surprised by this film. I'm hard pressed to find a movie that like reclaims its reason for existence as strongly as Cars 3 does.
Yeah.
Cars 2 like ruins everything, and then 3 comes around and is like, no, this is how you make a Cars movie.
Sorry about that.
Yeah, it's like swept under the rug. Mater has like 12 lines in the movie. Like they push it off to the side, and it's like they finally realized, oh, our protagonist is Lightning McQueen.
Yeah.
Let's give him some drama.
Not Toe Mater.
Right. And I could tell from the get-go that it was like, okay, this is a sports movie.
Yeah.
This is an underdog story.
Yep.
This is the story of aging out of something that you love.
Yep.
And that's a lot of really good meaty material.
Yeah.
And I just loved Cars 3. I thought it was great.
Yeah.
And I'll rewatch it, I'm sure. Still some of the things bother me with Cars just in general.
Yeah.
But which keeps it from being higher on the list. But I really enjoyed Cars 3, so sue me. 13, I have Up. which was that exactly where you
That's
had
exactly where I had it. Yeah.
it? Okay, so yeah, Up is
Oh,
13.
I didn't even talk about it. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
Up's not as good as I remember. I saw it like a month ago and I was like, oh, I used to think I thought this was going to be like my top 10 and it's
yeah,
not.
it's
Fun and everything. It's just, I don't know. I don't know what it is. I think it's maybe just, I don't know if it's my feelings about Mr. Fredrickson and I'm just not as much into what's going on with him as I am other protagonists on this list.
sure. I think that makes sense. For me, it's yeah, I'm just not as connected to like I like Carl. I think I'm just not as connected to the kid, whatever his name is. I can't remember. Russell.
Yeah.
Russell and Doug. You know, I'm just not very connected to them as characters. And you know, Kevin, the quiet, weird animal sidekick. Again, there are better.
Yeah.
Quiet, weird animal sidekicks. And so yeah, it's just it's just there,
Yeah.
but it's good, and I think it's better than Cars 3.
Yeah.
I do enjoy it, and you know, it's good. But again, I will rewatch it, and I will have no problem rewatching it on any given day. But I think it's just, you know, there are films that are better. My number 12, which I know we're going to disagree on, is Incredibles 2. Incredibles 2 is kind of middle of the list for me. It's so it doesn't live up to what The Incredibles was, which for me is, you know, still maybe the perfect superhero movie.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe. And Incredibles 2 is good. But I think there's, at least for me, there's some weird walkbacks and like step backwards in this, which I wasn't expecting. You know, one thing that I think maybe we talked about in our review of it, and it's just always stuck with me is the feeling that like it sort of rewrites a little bit of the first film, in that by the end of the first film, you kind of get it's never stated, but you kind of get the feeling that supers are welcome back into society. And then in Incredibles 2, it's like, but not really. Yeah. And so it's still an uphill battle to have them be accepted. And I get it. Like realistically, if this were an intended, you know, sequel that came out, you know, a year after, 2 years, 3 years after The Incredibles, right, and was always intended, I would understand. But with The Incredibles, I feel like I sat with that for so long, and that was what I took away from it. That was the implication. Yeah. That now when you take that away from me, it feels jarring to me.
At the same time, it could be argued that they weren't sure they're going to make a sequel until after the first one was like so well received. So for them, it rounds out more to have the film end with supers being accepted, and then for a sequel, you have to realize like, oh, we can't really have public opinion on their side right away. So we're going to have to retcon that. Or maybe people change their minds. I don't know.
Again, it makes complete sense. Like, you know, story wise, it's just, to me, it ruins what like headcanon that I have accepted for a decade, right? Of like, not a decade, but you know what I mean? Of for quite a while of like, oh, things are better now and supers are out in the open, and that's great.
But
and
the film ends with that sentiment, and then immediately at the end of the first film and the beginning of this film, they're concurrent, there's a big destructive pursuit that happens, and the criminal gets away, and there's a bunch of damage. So you might be able to argue within the plot that everything was fine, and then everyone was really quickly reminded of why they were outlawed in the first place, and then public opinion turned.
And I would agree. Again, it makes sense story-wise, but as a viewer, when you watch The Incredibles and it ends with the shirt rip and the mask goes on, and then you have the bombastic score, da-na, 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 and it's like, Oh, snap. In your mind, in your brain as you walk out of the theater is they're beating the crap out of the Underminer and they're going to save the day.
Yep.
And this is great. It's a brand new optimistic horizon for supers.
Right.
And like that's sort of the implication. And so again, I understand story-wise, and like if this were like a TV miniseries or whatever, like episode 2 picks right up, makes sense because it was always intended, right? But for me, there's just this little thought that like I almost would have preferred if they had jumped forward a few months.
Yeah.
And everything was great and public opinion was on their side and then something happens.
Yeah.
Right. And then so they have this short like moment of like, yeah, we're great. And that doesn't undermine the first film at all or what you imply from it or infer from it. And then all of a sudden, like, then you can jump into this story and it's still the exact same.
Yeah.
It's the trajectory that has always made sense. It's just starting it so early, like you said, concurrently with the first film, I think undermines the first film a little bit. No pun intended. And so I think
undermined twice.
I know. and so I think that's I think that's what keeps it down for me. And then 11. Well, I'll tell you what. I've talked for a minute. You go.
Well, yeah, you said everything I would say about Up, I guess. Just to quickly put a cap on, since these two films are so close.
Yeah.
My 4-star category, my last tier of good films. Number 10 is Cars. Number 9 is Cars 3. Cars 1 has grown on me.
Sure.
I really didn't think it was anything special when it came out. I was just like, oh, it's kind of, it's about cars. But then, like, over the years, it's been like, wow, the structure's really strong, and I keep getting impressed by structure, and the more I sort of realize, there's, I think, I can't remember when we may have talked about this in the Disney bracket thing, but someone pointed out that Cars and Thor are very similar films.
Really?
Yeah, structurally.
You know what? That makes sense.
Banished to the little tiny, Southwest town, voluntarily and involuntarily, and the humbling of the talented whatever person. But Cars is just, I think, just a really solid movie, and it's one of those, like, if you're going to have the humbled loud guy storyline, it's a really good film for kids to be introduced to that formula with, sort of a pun, Formula 1, Cars 2. Yep. Let's not talk about Cars 2, but sure. So Cars is up there, and I wrestled with where to put these movies because I thought about putting Cars lower, but I liked it more than Onward or Dory or Up or anything like that. But I like Cars 3 better, and I think it's the best of them. I think for them to not only come back from Cars 2, refocus the plot, but to do it in such a really, it really is just a duo of films about, this rookie who's on top of his game, and then he actually learns how to be, a whole person and a selfless person and a more authentic person. And then he spends a career, however short, doing that and loving it and enjoying it, and then being sort of forced into retirement and coming to terms with how he wants to leave the sport. Yeah. And I thought that was a really cool thing that, again, spoiler alert for Cars 3. I love that they spend so much of the movie, like, how's he going to, like, beat Jackson Storm? And then at a certain point, if you're paying attention, you can see it. But if not else, then during the climax, he's like, I'm not going to beat Jackson Storm because I'm too old to race like this against these new people. But this person's got promise. They want it for the right reasons. And I think I'm finally motivated to actually be a crew chief. And I just really, really love that they made a movie, especially the third movie, of it's not about you. Sometimes it's not about you. And sometimes it's about how you can contribute to your sport or follow your passion in a new way that makes sense for where you are now in life. And I just thought that was a really cool, mature message to present to kids,
Sure. I'd agree.
Yeah. What about you in that area?
So I have my 11 is Coco. I really enjoy Coco. This is like start of the upper echelon for me. I really love Coco. I think its world is great. The music is great. I just love how the culture that it represents is so vibrant and beautifully displayed. I love the fact that, aside from one or two, it's devoid of big name actors, that are, supplying these voices, and it just feels like a movie. And
Coco's my number 4.
Really? Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I love Coco. I think it's such a good movie, and it's just beautiful to watch.
Yeah.
Cinematography is gorgeous. Again, the music is great. The characters, I love the character's journey here. It's a kid who has a passion and loves a thing, and his family doesn't support that passion. And then, how emotional it gets towards the end is just, it's everything you want in a Pixar movie. Absolutely everything you want in a Pixar movie. So I love it. 11 is Coco. We can talk more about that as we get up close to the top of the list if you want to, or if you want to go ahead and jump in now, you can.
I got, yeah. Which Coco?
Yeah.
I don't have much more to say about Coco. I'm sort of short on time, but
sure.
But I just think it's a really beautiful movie, a really emotional movie. Yep. It's just, again, very different from the other films. It's really good that it's so deeply immersed in its storyline, its culture, and it just really stands out, and it's just really a great movie.
Absolutely. Also, maybe the most adult movie. Yeah, I'm not sure. Anyway, 10 is Monsters, Inc. We've talked a lot about Monsters.
Yeah.
I won't keep going, but I love Monsters, Inc. 9 is Ratatouille. 8 is Monsters University. And then that brings me up to 7. So why don't you get it caught up to 7?
So these are my 2 4.5 star films. 8 is Toy Story. 7 is Toy Story 2.
Okay.
For me, we've sort of covered this a little bit, but those are just my favorite characters, and there's a lot of nostalgia that goes into why I love those movies. But again, just as far as just such a creative premise, but mature themes explored through toys and the adventures that they have, is just great music, great characters. Everything is great about those 2 movies, and I put them right on top of each other. I just think they're great, and they only are down there because everything above them are just better, or just as good as it gets.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
My number 7 is Finding Nemo.
So number 6.
Number 6. Okay, so we're right about there.
Yeah.
7. So Finding Nemo is again, beautiful movie, great character's journey. Love the arc for Marlin, and Dory as a sidekick works brilliantly.
Really great.
Really love her as a foil to him. He's this stoic, focused, determined, hard-headed, and then she's this loosey-goosey, go with the flow kind of character. It's just a great pairing. And then all of the side characters, from the sharks to Crush to every single one of them. You mentioned the pelican, whose name I can't remember. Nigel. Yeah. All the fish in the fish tank, they're all just great. And so I love Finding Nemo.
It's great, and it's just another world that they established early on in the movies that was so unique and different and rich, and that they clearly think is worth going back and mining for. But I just love watching Finding Nemo. Every time we can't figure out what to watch on Disney Plus, I turn it on because it's just, the jokes are all funny. Every sight gag is funny.
It just works.
All the action sequences are really fun. It's just so inventive, and it's I've seen it so many times, and I really love it.
Yeah. My number 6 is Toy Story. Nothing really more to say about Toy Story. Everybody knows what it is and everybody loves it. And, what can you say that hasn't already been said? Toy Story is great.
Yeah, it's so good.
What's your number 5?
My 5 is Inside Out.
Me too.
Oh, cool. Yeah. That and Finding Nemo are my 2 5-star movies.
Okay.
I've come around on Inside Out. I didn't used to rank it as high, but everyone I talked to told me I was stupid. So I've seen it so many times since then, and I can sort of appreciate what it achieves
Mm.
story wise and psychologically. But
Yeah.
I wouldn't call it as like exciting as the other films I like on my list in terms of like watchability. But
Mhm.
it's so creative. I have to give it credit for that.
Yeah.
It's so inventive and so imaginative,
Mm.
and that's what storytelling is supposed to be about,
Yeah.
and it's
Yeah.
not even, it's maybe there's like a small character lesson in there, but the movie isn't even so much about joy as it
Yeah.
is just about how preteen development works neurologically.
Yeah.
It's so it doesn't really follow a structure in that way, and it
It's
still
such a
really works.
complicated movie.
Yeah.
It's so thoughtful, and so like to have a writer sit down and think out this world
Yeah.
that perfectly explains a scientific, neurological, psychological concept,
Yeah.
is beautiful, and
Yeah.
that's what storytelling is about.
Yeah.
It's about using fiction to tell about real life, and that's exactly what this does. Inside Out. I mean, the voice work is great.
Yeah.
The gags are all hilarious. I love. There's just something about Amy Poehler and Phyllis that are just so. Like that. That's just such a perfect pairing. And
Could
so,
you not remember Phyllis's real last name?
Phyllis Smith, is that right?
You almost,
I couldn't remember it. I wanted to say Lappin Vance, but
Vance.
yeah, Phyllis Smith and Amy Poehler, yeah, just phenomenal. Great pairing, and I love everything about them.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
That was
my
5.
4, you've already revealed your 4.
My 4
your
is
4
Coco,
was
and
Coco.
these are my 6-star movies. They're probably
Okay.
it's easy to guess now at this point, but
Yeah.
You want to just give me your top 4?
Sure. So my 4 is Toy Story 2.
Okay.
Again, not much more to say. I think it tops Toy Story 1 because it builds on that world.
Yeah.
It gives a more personal story for Woody, who is, of course, the protagonist, and builds on more than just like jealousy, right? It's like a true building of that character.
Yeah.
Without Toy Story 2, the other Toy Story film, 3, doesn't work. This is really where it gets good here. So Toy Story 2. My number 3 is WALL-E. We've talked a little bit about WALL-E already, but for me, WALL-E is the most sophisticated of all of Pixar's movies. It is done largely without dialogue, especially in the first 2 acts. For me, I completely connect with the characters and what they're going through. I think the jokes are all funny, although it's not super jokey. And I love just the adventure that WALL-E finds himself on. It's a quest for purpose. It's a quest for love. And it's essentially also a little bit of like an inadvertent quest, right? He's sort of a reluctant protagonist, and so a reluctant hero, and so I love that about him. He gets swept up into something bigger than himself, and I love WALL-E. I think it's just Pixar at its best.
Yeah.
My number 2. Sorry, refresh my memory. What's your number 3?
My 3 is Incredibles 2.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, why don't we talk about Incredibles 2 first?
Well, I kind of want to hit them all at once because I like them all for slightly different reasons.
Okay, so let's hit them. Let's hit them all at once because my 2 and 1 are probably the same as yours.
Okay.
The Incredibles at 2, Toy Story 3 at 1.
Yes, exactly.
And then so give your take of the Incredibles 2, and then we'll hit the other 2.
So the Incredibles 2, I mean, really just the 2 Incredibles movies. Like like you said, the perfect superhero movie, and I think the Incredibles is like a perfect family movie. Yeah. I think it's so crazy how it's so efficiently and interestingly tells us the story of a family of 5, really, but 4 characters
4,
who each grow through this really intricate and imaginative plot, and how much I've grown to love the film as I've aged and had children because, it's just more personal for me, and I love superheroes, and I love my kids, my family. So like it's a really great movie to watch and just sort of derive a lot of personal meaning from, with the father going through the sort of oh, I'm not so great anymore. I used to be great. Like, I wish I was still great. Am I still great? Can I be great? And, and I love everyone's story so much, but especially that of Bob. And Incredibles 2, I sort of like it as a marriage story. I like it as a husband learning to appreciate his wife's talents, and that part of what makes him part of what makes him have worth isn't just his ability to do his job, but it's his ability to support his wife in her job. And I just liked that as an allegory for a give and take in a marriage, and how he grows from being Mr. Mom in the house, dealing with his third kid, manifesting his powers, and how he learns his kid's rhythms and juggles it. And that's part of what makes him Mr. Incredible.
Yeah.
And just
totally.
on a final personal note, every time we watch The Incredibles, my son points to Bob and says, "Daddy, that's you." And that's like the best thing. That's like the nicest thing he's ever said to me. It's really cool. Whether it's because he's the father of 3 kids or because he really thinks I'm great. It's so nice to hear.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. I think The Incredibles is arguably the perfect superhero movie. It gives a full and complete arc to 4 different characters. And when I watched it most recently, I was so like, I obviously have always loved this movie, but my jaw just dropped because I realized this is storytelling at its best. Like you can't take 4 characters and give them all satisfying arcs. Oh wait, yes you can. The Incredibles already did it. And like, it's so good. Every beat, every scene, so focused, so tight. You can't remove any of them. It's enjoyable for kids and enjoyable for adults, because there's a whole added layer to it with, marital struggles and trust issues and blah, blah, blah. It's just great. I love it. And then Toy Story 3.
Toy Story 3, it's so, we've said it so much on the show, we only have 2 minutes to talk about it anyways, but it's just perfect. It's the perfect cap off, the perfect send off. And it's so good for so many reasons. And for every reason that we like movies, it's why Toy Story 3 is so good.
Absolutely. It somehow manages to cap off, because Toy Story 4 doesn't exist, a perfect trilogy, and gives those characters, more than just Woody, by the way, gives their characters a complete and satisfying ending, that, we had talked a little bit before the break, maybe yesterday, about Onward kind of coaxing emotion out of you. Toy Story 3 doesn't take any coaxing. I watched that movie, and before I even knew I was crying. And it's the only film on this list that has successfully made tears fall from my eyes. And so it's number 1. I felt emotion, and I love it, and I've rewatched it a billion times. And even though I do not cry every time, I will always cherish that first time I saw Toy Story 3.
It's great. I love it. It's going to be hard to top. So
yeah, absolutely.
That is our list.
It
was so hard to make it. I sat down on a Saturday and just tried to make it. It was so hard.
It's so tough. And, a lot of these, like, ask me again in 6 months and I'll reorder them. Like, it's great. I mean, I think the top 5 are pretty cemented, but some of these you mentioned earlier, it's like an Olympic race. It's a photo finish on a lot of these, and it could go either way. But I just really love all of these movies, except for you, Toy Story 4 and Cars 2.
All right, that's it.
That's it.
All right, dude. Well, let's do this again next week. I don't know what we're going to talk about, but I don't want to know. I have no idea.
I know. We'll figure it out.
We'll see.
We'll see.
Okay, that's it. See you later, Dustin.
Bye.
Goodbye.